Okay, so here we are. In this lesson, we'll go over just the basic editing functions and sort of continuing the interface, but for the actual editing, just because it makes more sense once we actually start having clips in there. And for those of you that have taken my staff pick class, DaVinci Resolve, the video editing workflow. Some of this footage may look familiar, and really for this class, we're going to create a similar video. There's just new clips in here, a lot of new stuff that we can play with. So let's get started. I'm just going to sort of treat this as I would typically edit something. So first things first, I am going to go into the master page, and I'm going to name my timeline Adventure Spot. Okay, so let's just call it that. And I'm going to go back into my media page, and I'm just going to start dropping some stuff in. Usually I would probably, go in here and just start kind of watching through footage and selecting the good stuff here that I like, or scrubbing through it. And you can see as I'm scrubbing through, it's also updating it over here. But this, if you've ever edited anything before, you know that doing this sometimes when you just want to watch all the footage, can take hours. So I'm just going to maybe start us off here. Okay, let's see. We'll just start off with this mountain shot, and I am going to hit I and O, and then I'm just going to simply take this clip and drop it down here, and boom, there you have it. And then I am going to cut to this shot. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to start looking at the different types of editing and how the timeline thinks in the cut page, which is a little bit different than how I would think in a typical editor. If you're in Final Cut Pro 10, or if you've used that, it may seem a little bit more familiar than someone that's, say, coming from Premiere. But here we go. So what I'm going to do next is, what we have is a smart insert, and then we also have a append, which means that it's going to add it to the end. So that's what we're going to do now. This option here is probably going to be the more commonly used function when you're doing your first cut. Notice where the playhead is. It's kind of just at the beginning right now, but I'm just going to go like that. And you can see it didn't matter where the playhead was. That's one of the things that kind of confuses people at first when you're used to, in a typical editor, always having the playhead where you want the clip to go, which makes sense. But there's some smart functions in the cut page in Resolve where you don't have to do that, and just in not going through that extra step of like maneuvering the playhead and putting it exactly where you want, you'll see saves a lot of time. So by the way I'm scrolling there is on my trackpad. You can do it with your mouse if you have this. You can also do it on a trackpad if you have it. And I'm just basically scrubbing left and right to move the playhead left and right. But let's do another clip and I'll show you how this works. Okay, so I am now going to click on this one, and I'm going to I, O, and same thing. I'm going to append, boom, append to the end is literally what that's called. So you can see it's adding it in. And so as we're building our edit, let's go over more interface stuff. So you can see that there's two timelines here, which is really useful. You have you could call zoomed in timeline here, and then we have the bird's eye view timeline here. So all we have is 3 shots so far, and you can see that these kind of mirror each other as I'm scrubbing through them. Our first shot, our second shot, our third shot, and you can see the same thing is happening up here. I can either, scrub through to jump through my timeline, or a quicker way, if I want to just jump all the way here, I can just click and it jumps straight there. If I want to go here, I can jump there. If I want to jump all the way to the end, or just through the entire sequence. As we edit more and more, you're going to see this is going to, be more and more useful, so you can jump around wherever you'd like. So I'm just going to go all the way to the end again, and we're going to keep adding shots. Okay, and I'm going to just go here, and we're not making a masterpiece by any means. I just grabbed a lot of great footage that is kind of connected thematically, and I'm going to go there. And one thing about the cut page is that it's very aware of where exactly you're placing your playhead. So if I just do this and drop it there, it places it there. And if I grab this and just put it up there so that it does that, it places it there. Okay, and again, if I grab it and just drop it on there, okay, notice two things happen. So if I drop it on there, notice how this clip here is going to kind of become a little bit highlighted. So if I just drop it on there, boom, see how it's kind of getting highlighted? If I do that, it replaces that shot. I want to undo that. But if I bring this same shot down, hold it there for a little bit, it kind of, you know, does not do the replace function, and then I can just slide this through wherever I want and place it wherever I want. That's another big tip. Where your mouse arrow is exactly will affect how the edit is going to happen, and it helps save a lot of time. So we're going to do that for now, and then I'm just going to add one more shot. I'll just do this shot here, and okay, and I'm just going to go with these here, add that to the end. And right now we're just kind of adding clips, you know, and I want to add the music and voiceover now. So I am going to go to the voiceover, and here's what I'm going to do to make this easier on myself. So I'm going to grab the music and I'm just going to drop the whole thing in, and you can see that it's easier. If I want to add this to the whole timeline because it just works better that way, I'm just going to drop it in on this larger timeline. And there we have it. The whole playhead. There we have it. The entire voiceover is there. And now I'm going to go over here and go to music and grab that. Same thing, I'm going to go here and I'm going to add the music. That, add it there. Let's move it over. Let's play through that, both of these together. Rolling. Adventure. You can see that it sounds pretty horrible. Okay, so now what I want to do is I'm going to go here and I'm just going to expand this just so I can see the audio a little bit better. And that was just by clicking on this little icon. Okay, and here I can see that what I'm basically saying is rolling. This is before the actual edit. And of course, typically you would probably edit it, you know, do the editing up here first, but I'm just wanting to kind of show you how you would do some of these functions to blow it up. So I'm just scrubbing through. Okay, so it looks like that's the first line. So now I'm just going to go there. And here again is one of the tools. I mean, pretty common one. I can either hit split here or I can hit Command B. And then I can delete that. And I'm just gonna slide this all the way over. Or again, easier way is moving up here. Make that a little bit quicker. Okay, and then again, I'm just gonna time it. Now I'm gonna collapse that again. And I'm gonna actually slide it over so we hear the music come in first. Adventure. Great. And it's just, you know, a very simple edit like that. And again, we can kind of view up here to see that or do the zoomed in function there. And then let's just keep editing. So here's this edit so far. Adventure. It's a word that always has a story. You can see you can't really hear my voice. So again, this is just going to be, you know, a rough adjustments of the audio. So now what I'm going to do is go up into the inspector. I have the audio selected here, and I'm just going to increase that a little bit more. And you can see that, you can see those adjustments there. And we're going to rewind. Adventure. It's a word that always has a story. And then I'm going to take this one here. And I'm just going to drop that down, say -4 points. Okay. Adventure. It's a word that always has a story. Adventure makes us stronger. Adventure terrifies us. Okay, so that's it. It's just, I just wanted to make a quick rough adjustment so that we can actually do our editing here and show you more of these tools. Okay, so let's just kind of move forward a little bit. And now that we are actually building something, let's go back to the media page again, and I will, let's see, let's add another nice shot. It's maybe this guy here, in, out, append, there we go. And so now that we have a good amount of shots, I'm gonna go over a few of these features here, icons here for what these are. So this first one here is ripple on, okay? So what is a ripple edit is the first thing you have to know to understand what this means. So let's say this little shot here, I want to make it a little bit longer because it's very quick. Adventure. It's a word that always... Okay, so I'm going to expand this, and as I expand this, also keep your eye here so you can see how the timeline behaves. I'm going to go here and then just expand it out, and I'm seeing how much I'm adding to this shot with the plus 18, and then the bottom is the total duration of that clip now. So I'm going to make it, let's just say I want to make it an even 2 seconds. So what a ripple edit does is, as you're stretching something out or expanding a shot or making it longer or shorter, the rest of the timeline goes with it. And if you look at this larger timeline here, as I'm adjusting it, you can see everything else is rippling with it and expanding with it. Usually in an editor, if I were to go, say, here, which is the shortcut to it, or even if I was here and turn that off and I would make an adjustment of some sort, in most editors that happens. Or if I try to do that same thing here, that happens. You end up with a gap there. So that's basically something that's sort of similar to Final Cut Pro 10. It just makes, you know, editing a little bit quicker, a little bit faster, with less having to, for example, if I were to say trim this, you know, then I have to select that and delete it, and then that ripples and connects to the shot previous, you know, right next to it. So it's just a way of saving time, having your ripple tool on. Sometimes you want it off, but a lot of times it is helpful to have that on. So in most cases, I do have it on, so I'm going to leave that on. And then trim to audio is basically a way, you know, so actually to see this, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add in a shot here that makes no sense for this, but this one has, you know, is a little clip from one of my previous classes, and I'm just going to do in. So I'm just going to grab this and I'm just going to, you know, drop it in here. And now what we're seeing in the timeline is I'm going to, again, expand this, the audio. So again, what we're talking about now is the trim to audio function. What that does is that if I want to now adjust this shot here, it converts the entire shot to audio so I can clearly see what I'm doing. Okay, so in most cases you might click here. See, and you can very easily see what you're adjusting audio-wise. So if I want to make sure that this line starts right at the perfect place, I can see it very clearly. If I don't have that on, this is what we'll see. So I'm going to go back in here. I'm going to turn off trim to audio. And if I want to make an adjustment that's similar to that, I would see that. And you see it's very small. The word, you know, the name of the file covers up, and it's really hard to see what I'm doing. You know, it's kind of, I can't see what I'm doing at all. So, you know, I would always suggest keep that on. It's very helpful. That way when you're making an adjustment, you know, even if this is collapsed, it still makes it, you know, quite a bit easier to just be able to make a fine, precise adjustment like that. Pushes us forward. Okay, and that's just basically what that trim to audio does. I'm going to delete that because that makes no sense with the piece. And then this is, you know, common sense, display clip names. So if I turn that off, we don't see the clip names anymore. Display clip status, that will cover, it has to do with proxies and other things there. And then snapping function too. So this actually relates to what we were doing in a little bit. A lot of people may know what snapping is. It's basically when you're, say I just drop in, we'll go to this shot here, in, out. So let me show you what snapping is. So let's say I want to go in here and place this somewhere specific. Snapping is on. See how it just kind of, as I get closer to that edit point, right there, it just kind of snaps on its own. So if I want to place this in, see, and that can get really annoying really quick. If I want to place this in a very specific spot, that's where you would turn off snapping, or the keyboard shortcut is also N, like that, you know, N. So I'll leave it off. Now, if I want to place this in a very specific place, see that snapping isn't attaching itself magnetically and just all snapping to it. I can place this very precisely where I want. In this case, I'm just going to actually hit N to turn it on because I do want it to snap. So I'm just going to actually delete that one there and delete that there as well. And let's go back in here very quickly. We're not dealing with subtitles now, so I'll skip that. I'm going to leave snapping on. Fixed playhead. Okay, so here is kind of a big one. So what is happening now is this is something where especially if you're used to a typical editor, it may just be very confusing. If I hit play, okay,
Adventure.
The playhead is right in the middle. It's fixed in the middle. It's always in the middle, no matter what I do. And if I scrub, it's always in the middle. And if I want to, you know, click over here and have the playhead jump over here, and I click once, nothing happens. I have to double click for it to jump there. That is how a fixed playhead functions, which can be very useful when you're editing quickly. But, you know, again, that's just something that may be too much of a learning curve for some people. Or it may just be that you don't like it. I personally, you know, depending on how I'm editing and what I'm editing, I turn it on and I turn it off. So I'm going to turn it off, and then it becomes a more traditional playhead where you click it and drag it around. Right now, if I scrub on my trackpad, for example, or if you have a mouse on your mouse wheel, what'll happen is rather than me moving the playhead, I'm just scrubbing through the timeline. And that's how most editors work. That usually is a big, you know, moment where people are like, oh yeah, I want to turn that off, or no, I like it on. And, you know, just like a typical editor, you scrub, you can grab the playhead. If I want it to jump here, I click there. So up to you if you want to go with the fixed playhead or the, I guess you would call traditional playhead. Just because that's default on the cut page, I'm just going to leave it on because I've honestly gotten used to it. But that's just a quick thing about that. And then more functions here. I'll go over these a little bit quick. So again, if you're dealing with subtitles, which we're not, you can create tracks here. This one I'll skip over because it's for a different type of workflow. In a nutshell, it basically will take a finished movie and cut it up for you and tell you where all the cuts are in case you need that. And then of course, just to add video tracks, add an additional audio track, add subtitle tracks. That's where you would find all this stuff. And then of course, markers, which, you know, this shortcut for every editing program, it's the same thing, M to add a marker. And you can see that you can do that, and double clicking, you can go through that marker, change the color, add titles, add your notes here. And that's basically what that is. You know, you can click here, or if you right click on it, you can specify a marker, but that's just kind of another way to do it. But we have those shortcuts here. And okay, so yeah, so those are, again, more of the basics with more of the interface, showing you these things as those clips are actually in the timeline so that things make more sense. In the next lesson, we're going to dive a little bit deeper, keep editing, keep polishing this down. But now that you are familiar with everything, the buttons here, in the next lesson, we're going to keep editing, and we're going to cover what all these different types of editing tools do. For example, what is a smart insert? What is a ripple overwrite, close-ups, all of this cool stuff here, place on top. I'll go over what all this stuff is in the next lesson, so I'll see you there.